off on track.
Only a weakling would do that.
Why Mercedes is so far off the pace. Mercedes have been nowhere near what we're used to them. After winning 8 straight Constructors' Championships and 7 Drivers' Championships, the team has found itself in a not-so-wanted situation, with their car suffering a lot. The team has struggled to be on the podium, and when they do, it's usually when its main rivals are retired or are having a bad race, as was the case in Silverstone. But how can a car change so much during one season? Stick with us and find out. During pre-season testing, Mercedes said in a press conference that their car is struggling a lot with a phenomenon called porpoising. This is caused by the air stalling beneath the car due to the new rules of a car gaining downforce mostly through the floor, a thing that is called ground effect. With that being said, Mercedes entered the season with a major lack of pace, and although they finished P3 and P4 in the season opener, the result didn't show the true performance of the car. Both Red Bull cars retired because of a reliability issue, and Verstappen retired yet again in round 3 in Australia due to fuel pump issues, easing the way for Russell to climb the podium. Why are we saying this? It's because if you look at the results, you'll notice that Russell has finished top 5 in every race so far except for Silverstone when he crashed at lap 1. Also, you'll notice that Hamilton didn't pass Q1 in Jeddah and finished P10, claiming just 1 point, and he finished P14 in Imola, only to be promoted to P13 after Ocon's 5-second penalty. In Monaco, the 7-time world champion also performed badly, finishing P9 just to be promoted to P8 after Ocon received yet another 5-second penalty. But Russell has been able to be the best of the rest, as he was finishing constantly up there. It seems like Mercedes have picked up some pace and managed to differentiate themselves from the rest of the grid and be the 3rd best team on the grid. In Silverstone, the pair shared the podium for the first time together, as Hamilton was able to crown his 300th GP with a P2 finish. Yet Mercedes is still way off from what they want to be, and from a team that used to dominate others by 1 to 2 seconds in qualifying and be 15 to 20 seconds ahead of everyone else in the race, they turned into a team that follows the leader by 1.2 seconds in qualifying. So what is happening with the team? The first major problem that Mercedes has is porpoising. We've seen it with Ferrari, but the drivers are able to pull majestic laps even with it. So it hits Mercedes differently than it hits Ferrari. The porpoising is a really uncomfortable phenomenon, impairing the driver's vision and ability to judge corners and main straight periods of the track. Things have gotten to the extent that Hamilton was seen leaping out of the car after the race ended in Baku, after achieving P4 as a final result, with both of the Ferrari drivers retiring due to reliability issues. Mercedes seem to have found a solution for the porpoising, but it's a really extreme one, as they are running the car too close to the ground now. That way the air cannot stall, but the imperfections on the track will cause yet another problem that is very similar to the porpoising, called bottoming out. The main difference between these two is that in the latter, the whole car hits the ground, unlike in the porpoising, when just the rear is hitting the tarmac. The mechanism of how porpoising is triggered in Mercedes was unknown for quite a long amount of time for the engineers. Not just that, the team has suffered a lot in their race pace, as we've seen Perez overtaking Hamilton in Australia without the need of the DRS, something that is constantly used even for passing slower midfield cars. Mercedes has also struggled a lot with the implementation of simple suspensions instead of active ones. This is why George Russell has been the most vocal driver with Hamilton when it comes to this rule. According to him, the active suspension helped the drivers a lot because they could adjust the ride height whenever they feel like it, as different stages of the track require different ride heights. For example, you can increase the ride height in low-speed corners, but when you exit on the main straight, you can lower the car in order to gain more downforce. The only short-term solution that the team had at that moment was to lift the ride, and they did that, which was why they were much slower when they weren't porpoising in different tracks. When you increase the ride height of an F1 car, you gain drag and lose downforce, hence the loss of a lap time happens. In F1, the most important thing is to optimize performance, and with lifting the car ride, Mercedes have been hurt badly by this phenomenon. Another huge difference noticed between Mercedes and their main rivals is the straight line speed. Sure, one major factor is the porpoising issue, as in Mercedes. It's triggered at lower speeds, hence it's much stronger and more aggressive when the car reaches higher speeds. But apart from that, Mercedes were lacking lots of speed on the straight line sectors, and one of the reasons may be the clipping. Clipping is a process where the hybrid system of the car runs out of battery before the end of the straights, and if you compare Mercedes' performance with other cars at the main straights, you'll notice that they are losing speed at this part of the track. This, however, doesn't necessarily mean that Mercedes lacks power in the entire PU. Clipping is more about where you're choosing to use your battery, so maybe rather than focusing on the straights, the Mercedes drivers are choosing to use their hybrid deployment through corners to get acceleration in areas where they can use the performance rather than trying to run as fast as possible on straights, potentially leading to porpoising. The possibility of Mercedes drivers easing up on the strat modes just because of the porpoising issues is also real, as they are saving their engine life for when the chassis can exploit it. We've seen that Mercedes have suddenly found a huge amount of pace from Montreal above, and they brought upgrades to their floors frequently in order to battle the porpoising issue. We've seen them competitive in Barcelona, as Hamilton fought with Sainz and was able to beat him for P4, but was forced to give his place back due to a possible malfunction of his engine. With Mercedes being currently off the current pace, the so-wanted six-car battle at the front is becoming more and more impossible to happen in the remainder of the season. This is a season where Hamilton could be far away from winning a single race, something that hasn't happened to him since he started racing. The worst season he had was in 2009 in McLaren, where he won only 2 races in Singapore and Hungary. Mercedes have accused their rivals Ferrari and Red Bull that they've been circumventing rules regarding the flexibility of their floors, something that could allow their cars to flex more and not porpoise as much as Mercedes. Verstappen was the first one to fire the shots back, saying that Mercedes is the team with the most flexible floor out of all of them, so there is no need for them to complain. Nevertheless, the FIA will bring a new technical directive for the 2023 season and will bring some measurements regarding the plank wear of the cars, as the allowed flexibility is 2 millimeters. According to Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull comply with the rules at the places where the flexibility is measured, which is at 3 points on the plank wear, but otherwise, they are flexing much more than 2 millimeters. This could be Mercedes trying to catch their last straws when it comes to catching up with their rivals, as it's likely that the Silver Arrows are going to forfeit this season and focus on the next one. After all, why not? The team is far away from what we're used to seeing, and this season the maximum they can get is P2. That is, if Ferrari doesn't fix their reliability issues, and the W13 remains as bulletproof as it's been in the first half of the season.
Has a nice gap opening on the inside coming out of turn 1, and Verstappen is back ahead.